Do you want to learn the secrets of trading? The truth is, too many investors know the struggles of trading. Now let's find out what worked and what didn't with their personality, as these successful investors share their trading journey with us.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Trader's Journey. I am your host, Ryan Faluna, and I am here with Masi from Masi Trades. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to hear your trader's journey. So let's just go ahead and get started. Take us on your journey. How did you get started in trading?
So I started trading, or I got introduced to it probably in 2018. I saw a lot of people on Instagram trading. It started becoming kind of a thing where people were posting a lot of Forex, a lot of just stock trading in general. And it kind of piqued my interest in it. And I was working a corporate job then, and I wasn't really happy in my corporate job. It wasn't something that I saw myself doing long term. And I had never really had the confidence to get into stocks because of the whole kind of men being in the financial field. There wasn't a lot of women that were trading, not a lot of women that I knew even that were into stock trading or anything. So it was a little nerve-wracking and I was a little underconfident trying to get into it, but I didn't want to stay in my corporate job and I wanted to do something else. So that's kind of how I started getting introduced to it, or just started kind of being interested in trading. And it started in 2018, and ever since then, it was a little bit of a bumpy road. Obviously, from when I first started, I had a lot of struggles. I didn't really give myself time to learn. I didn't give myself time to really understand the trading concepts and strategies, and I just dived right in, and I lost a lot of money. And a lot of traders do when they first start trading, they don't give themselves the opportunity to get over that learning curve, and they end up losing a lot of money. But once I did kind of pull myself back and really give myself the time to learn, be educated about the stock market, and that's kind of when it started picking up, and here I am now.
I can totally relate to all of that. I had several corporate jobs and I didn't want any of them. That's why I got into trading too. So that's funny to hear you say that. And I can also definitely relate to losing some money at the beginning. That's actually how I learned to keep my money. So that went a long way in my development. That's good to hear. Now, I know that you're a huge options trader. When did you know you wanted to trade options? And how many hours did you put into studying before you were actually profitable?
So the beginning of 2019 is when I started to kind of get more profitable with trading equities, trading shares. And it wasn't until June or July of 2019 that I was introduced to options by a friend of mine. And I realized that, a lot of traders were making a lot of money and they weren't putting up as much risk, or they were making a higher percentage return, putting up the same risk as me. So it didn't make sense. And I was interested in options, and it was around June or July when I started trading options. And the reason I really liked options is just because, one, less obviously risk that you have to put up with the same amount of percentage return versus obviously putting up more risk when trading shares or equities. And it was a lot easier. I got the concept a lot quicker versus trading shares or equities. It just, I don't know, I caught on a lot faster to options. It just clicked, versus where it took me a year and a half before I became completely confident and consistent with trading shares. I think that confidence and consistency trickled into options. So it was a lot easier for me to get into options right away and just fast paced, be able to trade really easily, make profit off options. And didn't really struggle with options like I did with shares.
That's actually really amazing. It was the opposite for me. So that's really cool to hear that you were able to just hit the ground running with options. Speaking of that, what was the hardest lesson that you had to learn in options trading?
The hardest lesson I think in general that I had to learn was discipline. I wasn't disciplined at all. I think even up until now, I've been working a lot on my discipline, where when I was trading options, I didn't know when to stop sometimes. Even when trading shares, I didn't know when enough was enough. I was done for the day. And I was very not disciplined when I was trading. And I think a lot of newer traders struggle with this because they'll overtrade and they'll sit there in front of the market for hours on end. And that's what I used to do. I would sit from 9:30 until 4 p.m. and I would watch the market, and I would end up giving back a lot of the profit that I made. And it was just causing a lot of anxiety and stress, and then just trickling into my trading for the rest of the week, the rest of the month. And that was probably the biggest thing I think that helped me switch my trading, was when I got really disciplined, not just with trading, but with my personal life. Because I think that also trickles into your trading, where you really need to be a disciplined individual in order to be able to succeed when it comes to trading.
That is an awesome answer. I absolutely love that. I have been saying a lot for many years now that your emotion is going to affect how you trade. And if you can remain disciplined, you're really doing yourself a service by kind of learning what to stick with, when to stop, all of that. I went through all of those lessons myself. It's so great to hear other people have the same type of lessons. So that's really great. Now, as far as options go, most options expire worthless. How do you find a consistent strategy to get around this?
So for my strategy, I'm only scalping or day trading options. I don't necessarily swing too often. When I do, it's maybe 1 day or 2 days out. So when I'm scalping, I'm only in the options trade for a few minutes, day trading for a few hours. I always make sure I buy, if it's closer to the beginning of the week, I buy, a close strike, I buy in the money or at the money strikes. That way it doesn't expire. And the volatility doesn't affect the premium price as much versus buying an out of the money call or put option. And then I also like to trade. So for Friday, since it's 0 DTE expiration, it's a little bit more risky. So when I was first trading options, obviously, as you become more consistent, I don't want to say I never trade 0 DTE, but when I was first started trading options, I always avoided Thursday and Friday trading the same week expiration. So that's kind of, I give myself a little bit of room for error in a way if you trade next week or a following week expiration when you're trading options.
You read my mind with that, because the first thing that I was going to ask you is, do you ever trade options that expire on Friday, on that actual Friday? So that's awesome. Now options, they're confusing to most people, at least most of the people that I speak to. What are the top 3 topics that you think an options trader should learn first in order to achieve success?
So top 3 topics, I think first is understanding strike prices, understanding at the money, in the money, out of the money, and how they affect your overall play, how your play pays out at the end of the day, how your premium is priced, how it fluctuates. I think a lot of people struggle to understand how to buy what strike, how to select what strike price, and they don't understand that, which strike prices are more risky. Obviously, out of the money are a little bit more risky, even though they're cheaper. People don't understand that, and because it's cheaper, they just buy out of the money. And then when the stock goes their direction, they're just like, well, I'm still in the red. How is that possible? Because they don't understand the differences between the strike prices. So I think that's a really important concept to learn. Probably the first thing I think you should really focus on when you start trading options. After that, I think IV, so implied volatility. Obviously, implied volatility has a huge impact on how your premium is priced, how it fluctuates, with earnings or with news that comes out. Obviously, IV is going to be higher. And then if you don't have enough IV, your stock's not going to move as much. You're not going to get a lot of movement in that premium price, and you're not going to get as much profit as you would if there was steady IV on that premium price. So I think that's really, really important as well to learn. And then volume. Volume, I think, is a huge concept to understand, not just with options, but with trading in general. If you don't have volume, there's no liquidity, there's no trading going on that strike price or on that stock, and you're not going to get movement on it. You're not going to make a profit on it. If anything, if you're buying same week expiration, it's going to fade out sooner, and you're going to take a bigger loss on it. So a lot of people don't understand volume. Volume helps the stock move. The more volume, the more liquidity. People are trading that stock. They're interested in it. And I think that's a really important concept to understand as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. That's amazing, because you pretty much described how I was as an options trader at the beginning of that answer. I bought contracts that were out of the money just because they were cheaper.
Yep.
And when the stock was moving in my direction and my contracts were not moving, I was like, what is going on? And it's funny, because now I've evolved to where I do exactly what you do. I buy at or in the money. And it's much, much easier for me to manage and much easier for understand. That's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. Now, you had mentioned volume there at the end of that. Do you ever trade unusual options? Do you follow any of like those big sweeps or some of like the big volume option trades that we hear about on TV?
So I do pay attention to sweep orders, to where, obviously big institutions are putting their money. I don't follow them necessarily, because I just don't think that that's the best strategy to utilize, but I do use them for momentum throughout the day. Obviously, if you see a stock start to move, pick up some volume, you see a lot of sweeps coming in, a lot of block orders coming in, could signify that the stock could continue that uptrend. It kind of pushes it shows you that there's volume behind that that movement, and it's not parabolic. There's a reason behind why the stock's moving in that direction. There's money being put behind it. It kind of solidifies, if I want to enter that stock, it kind of solidifies my decision on getting into that play.
Awesome. Now, if you could start all over again, if you could rewind and go back to day one, what would you tell yourself?
Be more confident. I think that's what I struggled with a lot. Even when I was trading shares, when I got into options, I knew exactly what I was doing. I had a solid strategy. I would hesitate so much because I was not confident in trading. I was not confident in the trades that I was taking. And that kind of was caused because sometimes you take losses, and it's okay to take a loss. It's okay. Those are all learning points. Those are all points where you can learn from yourself, learn from your mistakes. And that helps you become more confident because you know you've made this mistake before. You know exactly what you're doing. You're not going to make that mistake again. And I think that's what people don't understand is when they do take a loss, they just let that loss kind of affect them so much, and it bursts their bubble of confidence, and they're not able to kind of get back into the zone of trading. And then there are other people who take multiple wins. You know, they're profitable, they're very profitable, and they let that profit also get to their head. So it's overconfidence, and you need to be able to find that balance where, you know, you're confident, but you're not overconfident and you're not underconfident. Because if you're underconfident, you're going to hesitate. You're either going to take the play too late, or you're going to miss a play and you're going to sit there and say, wow, I just missed this play. I was 100% right. That's going to in turn affect your trading for the rest of the day. And you're going to end up taking a trade that didn't make any sense because you missed out on a play. You're now FOMOing in, and now you're going to take a trade that doesn't make any sense. So I think confidence is really, really important. And that balance between overconfidence and underconfidence is really important as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You learn a lot from your losses, and I've been at all three of those confidence stages that you described. So I've been there and seen that. Totally agree. All right, now finally here, this is a question we ask everybody. Are you still pushing your skill level and sizing up, or are you simply in a wash, rinse, repeat type motion with your strategy?
Yes and no. So when it comes to the knowledge part of trading, yes, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to update my strategy, find new indicators that I could potentially utilize, find different strategies that I could potentially utilize. I think it's really important because the market's always changing, and I think we need to adapt with that. And if you're just constant and you're not trying to learn anymore, you're not going to be able to adapt with the changing market. And you're just, one strategy doesn't work forever. I've changed my strategy probably so many times over the course of the past 2 years, 3 years. And I think that's really important. So when it comes to the learning part of it, I'm always consistently changing, learning new strategies. When it comes to the sizing part of it, I think I've hit a point where I don't feel the need to size up so much. I've hit a strategy. I've hit what I'm comfortable with. Last year when I was trading, I would size with heavy size, 70, 60 contracts at a time. And it was mentally exhausting. And I don't think a lot of people understand that part of trading either, because, you know, they see these big numbers being posted on social media, but they don't understand the kind of dark side of trading, where when you are sizing up like that, there is more emotional strain on you throughout obviously your life, whatever you're going through. And then on top of that, having that trading emotional strain, it affects you long term and it affects your daily life. And that's what it was starting to do to me, especially last year. It was just sizing up too much, the end of 2019 as well. And then now I've kind of disciplined myself a lot. I take 1 or 2 trades where I was taking 15, 20 trades back then. Now I'm taking 1, 2, 3 trades max per day. I'm sizing at a decent size, and then it's not as stressful, not as much anxiety that comes with it. So I think that's really important, that once you hit that peak where you're, you know, you have a good strategy, you are confident in it, and the size that you're utilizing, you're also mentally okay with that, and you're okay with that risk exposure, then you just need to kind of stay on that plateau. I think it's really important.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. Every trader is different, and what works for someone is not necessarily going to work for someone else. Exactly. Being able to figure out exactly what your strategy is and what that sweet spot is, that's how you really stack those profits and develop consistency. So, So that's great. Masi, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Your trader's journey is incredibly interesting. It sounds like you and I have a lot of similarities in that respect. So it's always good to hear that. Thanks again for joining us. And viewers, I hope you will join us on the next episode of A Trader's Journey.